Treehouse of Horror 26 is the fifth episode of the 27th season of The Simpsons, and it's not a bad Treehouse of Horror. I didn't love any of the segments, which is a shame. Usually with Treehouse of Horror, there's at least one that I adored, but often there's also one that I hated, but that's not the case here. All three segments were not too bad. As I usually do with Treehouse of Horror, I'll go through each segment. I won't go into a tremendous amount of detail, but there may be some spoilers from this point on. The intro meant nothing to me, to the point where I realized it was parodying something, and I couldn't quite work out what it was. Turns out it's a Ren and Stimpy thing, which if you're a fan of the Ren and Stimpy show, I guess that's kind of cool. It did look good, but because I didn't really know who the characters were or anything, it didn't really mean anything to me. But that's on me, not on the episode. Then we have Wanted Dead Then Alive, which is a Sideshow Bob segment, and I wasn't expecting Sideshow Bob to be in this. And initially, I kind of thought I don't really want him to be in it because I worried I'd forget that this was a Treehouse of Horror and that I'd think it was canon and this was the last time Bart encountered Sideshow Bob. But actually, when watching it, there's no way I could forget that this was a Treehouse of Horror because Sideshow Bob kills Bart and then brings him back to life and kills him again and brings him back to life, kills him again and repeat. And the ways he killed him were so creative and visually it was so great. I didn't mind the way the segment ended. It's maybe not the way I would have chosen to end it, but it was not bad and it was pretty good and I do like Sideshow Bob. I never used to. It took me a good few Sideshow Bob episodes, despite my love of Kelsey Grammer, to like the character, but now I adore the character. Yeah, this definitely isn't canon Sideshow Bob, but it's a bit of fun for Treehouse of Horror. Homerzilla is probably my least favourite. It's not terrible, but if I were to rank the three main segments, this would be bottom. And it did take me by surprise. As I said, there will be spoilers. I will spoil the bit that took me by surprise. But as you can probably tell by the title of this one, Homer is Godzilla. And I thought, okay, this is all right. It's not too bad. I really liked the design of Homerzilla. I wasn't sure how interesting they could make it, and then it turns out it was a film. We were watching them make a film, and then we got some jokes off of the back of that, and it was just clever. It was not what I was expecting or where I was expecting the narrative to go, so I really appreciate it taking me by surprise, and I do really like the design of Homerzilla, but it is still my least favourite of the three segments. And the last one I enjoyed, but again, it's not the direction I would have wanted it to go in. This is Telepaths of Glory, which is apparently a parody of Chronicle. I haven't seen Chronicle, but it has made me curious, which I think is a good thing. Bart, Milhouse, and Lisa fall down this hole when they're in the woods, and there's a radioactive explosion while they're down there. And it turns out that it gives them telekinesis, and they can obviously levitate and move objects with the power of their thoughts. And one of the characters takes things to a bit of an extreme. And I won't say which one, but you can maybe work it out. And I thought it was quite a fun idea. Again, as I said, it's not necessarily the direction I wanted them to take this with this narrative. I think there are so many different things they could have done with it, but it's not bad, just because it's not my preference. But I loved the message at the end. At the end of this episode, Maggie's actually sucking on this radioactive whatever it is, and she uses her power for good, and she makes people kind to each other, and gives a guy riding on horseback without a shirt on a jacket, and she does all these lovely things, and Homerzilla's turned into a cuddly pink dinosaur, and there's a rainbow in the sky, and it's nice to see that, in the right hands, that kind of power can be good. Not necessarily suggesting we give babies radioactive waste, but what harm could they do if their thoughts are pure at that age? It's an interesting thought, but let's never experiment with it. Ultimately, it's not a bad Treehouse of Horror. I didn't hate any of it. And in fact, I think it's been a while since there's been a Treehouse of Horror where I've not disliked any of it. So that's quite refreshing. But I didn't love any of it. It's definitely not my favourite. There's nothing in it that gives it a spark or that I got particularly excited about. But Sideshow Bob comes quite close. If I had to rank them in order of preference, it would definitely be Wanted Dead Then Alive, Telepaths of Glory, and then Homerzilla. All good, none bad. can't really complain. And this comes off of the back of another Halloween episode. So I've just had a very spooky 45 minutes or so with The Simpsons. So, all things considered, I'm pretty happy.